Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshack if you want to call me by my in-game name. Today we're going to be doing a deck guide on the Jade Golem Rogue, a very fun and interesting deck. A lot of people haven't refined it yet, and there's definitely a lot of different builds to this deck. So keep in mind that the modifications you can make to this deck are basically at this moment unlimited. If you don't have particular cards or you don't like particular cards, you can change them out. But for now, this is my current build, and it's been working fairly well for me. And there's a valid reason for everything in the deck. I know it looks a little bit weird. I know, but just trust me, everything is there for a purpose. So for those of you unfamiliar with how we do our deck guides here, we go ahead and we talk about the deck. We talk about why I have what I have in there. We talk about why there's only one of one card, or two of two cards and whatnot. We talk about, first of all, why it's in there, the breakdown, and the explanation behind that. From there, we go into the actual rank games. We'll go ahead and we'll play 3 to 4 games. We'll talk about the matchups. We'll talk about the mulligans. We'll talk about the overall win condition of the deck. And then from there, we'll go through the game. We'll go through my thoughts, and we'll get some wins in there. Probably lose a couple too, but that's not the point. The point is to learn the deck and how it wins and the way it is structured. So if you would like to build this deck, you're more than welcome to, and you can kind of get the feel from it from this deck guide. So from there, we'll start off with the deck and we'll start talking about it. So double backstab, basically a staple in any rogue deck. Very powerful spell. It's a 0 mana, deal 2 damage to an undamaged minion. So first of all, it costs 0 mana, which means you can combo it if you have the Jade Shurikens or a Vis, or whatever you're planning to do that turn. It works as a combo activator, or just that extra oomph to kill a creature you might not be able to kill. It synergizes well with Azure Drake. It's just a fantastic card. You can't really go without playing it in the rogue class. Plus, there's a lot of combo pieces in this deck. The Journey from Below is very interesting. I found that just throwing in the Jade Golem package in a rogue isn't necessarily enough to win, because Jade Golem Druid is a very powerful deck, and it has the ability to continuously summon Jade Golem cards with the Jade Idol. So in order to compete with something like that, you need more than just Jade Golem cards, because this doesn't have Jade Idol in the deck. It doesn't have the Auctioneer flow. So I thought, okay, well, what else works with a Jade Golem deck, and what does Rogue have in its package that works well with what's currently out there? And the answer was N'Zoth, right? So not only does Journey from Below cost 1 mana, it activates as a combo activator with cards like I mentioned, like a Vis, Jade Shuriken, and things of that nature. But on top of that, it fills out your curve that you may not be able to have. So let's say you draw into your Swashbuckler or Jade Shuriken or Swarmer, and you're missing a turn 3 or 4 play. You could go ahead and Journey from Below, fill out the curve that you're missing. It acts as a combo activator, but it also synergizes well with N'Zoth. So there's a lot of uses for Journey from Below. I originally started with none, and then I ended up with 2. I also played with 1, but it didn't seem like it was enough. So 2 seems like a good number in this deck, especially when you're playing N'Zoth as your late game win condition versus other control decks. Your Swashbuckler, again, is another 1-drop combo activator. It also throws your opponent off, because when you play a pirate in your rogue deck, they automatically think you're playing Miracle. They think you're playing, aggro pirate rogue, and you have the patches in your hand. It looks like you just had a really bad draw. But when you play the Swashbuckler, it generates a card automatically. It's a good early game start versus a lot of decks. But the part is, it gives you a card that your opponent, first of all, can't play around. It also signifies to your opponent, okay, it looks like he's playing pirates, which you're not, which makes your opponent play completely different up until turn 4 or maybe even 3 when you start playing your Jade Golem cards. The first, the Acidic Swampoo's in the deck, 1 is enough, 2 is too much. Destroys your opponent's weapon. Obviously, with all the Pirate Warrior being thrown around, the Pirate Shaman being thrown around, it's very important that you have some sort of ability to get rid of the weapon that they create, because this deck, first of all, has no heal, and it only has one form of taunt, which is the Defender of Argus. We'll get into why the Shadowcasters are here in a second, but this is very important in kind of slowing down the damage that you're going to take when going against those classes that the whole point of their weapon is to go face. So that's why we're playing the 1 ooze there. The Blood Mage is very important. It works very well in synergy with the Backstab, the Fan of Knives, the Abyss, the Shadow Strike, any spell in the deck that does damage, the Blood Mage does great with. Also, this deck lacks card draw. There's not a whole lot of it in the deck, so the Blood Mage not only synergizing well with the spell power, but it also allows you to draw a card. Very, very important. And obviously, you can only run 1. It also has a death rattle, so N'Zoth will bring it back, but that's not really the main purpose. The main purpose is the spell power and the draw. The double Vis, staple in a rogue deck. single target removal, 4 damage if you combo it, cost 2 mana, fantastic card. Jade Shuriken is the part of the Jade Golem Rogue package. The ability to, first of all, only spend 2 mana to deal 2 damage is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. But you're also able to summon a Jade Golem. At the start of the game, summoning a 1/1 or a 2/2 Jade Golem is not huge, but later in the game, when you can kill a creature but also summon like a 4/4 or 5/5 Jade Golem, is huge for only 2 mana. But keep in mind, it is combo, and that's again why the Swash is in the deck, the Journey from Below, the Backstab. There's a bunch of cheap cards in this deck, so you can synergize and combo well with cards like Jade Shuriken. Jade Swarmer, again, another rogue Jade Golem package card, has stealth, so it's going to be able to live. This card, you can use it well with Shadowcaster. It also can make trades and do a lot of cheap pirate cards. And its Death Rattle is summon a Jade Golem. Again, this works really well with N'Zoth because when you N'Zoth, your opponent's going to want to AoE. When they AoE, they're going to kill everything on the board. And because this is a Death Rattle, it'll actually summon creatures after their AoE. So your deck is very suited. It's very well suited versus decks like Reno, Warlock, because after they Twisting Nether, once you N'Zoth, you're still going to have a pretty sizable board, because not only are your Undercity Hucksters going to die, which are going to generate cards for you, there's going to be cards like Jade Swarmer that are actually still going to be able to keep cards on the board for you, so you can continuously attack and outvalue your opponent. Very, very important. Undercity Huckster, solid 2-drop in the deck. Again, synergizes well with N'Zoth. It's a 2-drop, 2/2 Death Rattle. Add a random class card to your hand. So unfortunately, it doesn't come from your opponent's deck, but it comes from their class, which is a little bit weaker because your opponent's deck is, of course, stronger than the overall class that you're going to be taking it from. But either way, it's a really good card. Synergizes well with N'Zoth, and it's most of the time goes 2 for 1 because they end up trading a creature into it, and you still generate a card. Fan of Knives is a little interesting. I've played with 2, I've played with 1, and I found 2 is too much because it just sits in my hand versus other control decks. But 1 is just enough because when you're playing an aggro deck, you can keep it in your opening hand, or if you draw into it, it's fantastic. In combination with Azure Drake or Blood Mage, you can get yourself a nice field clear. And it also draws you a card, and it also acts as a combo activator. So with that, if you want to wiggle in another one, that's fine. You can cut down on another card, such as maybe Defender if you're not finding yourself playing a lot of aggro, but then why would you want to add a Fan of Knives? So maybe, I'm not sure what you'd cut for it, to be completely honest, because every card in the deck is very, very important. But I found 1 to be a good number in this deck. The Shadow Strike is interesting. A lot of Rogue players decide they want to play 1, but I found that 2 is very, very good because there's a lot of Shamans and a lot of Warriors and a lot of Warlocks running around, but especially Shamans. And Shamans have this card called Totem Golem, and Totem Golem happens to have roughly 4 health. There's also a lot of Warriors, and they play a card called what is it called? The fucking Berserker card. Fuck that card. And that card has 4 health as well, and it needs to die as soon as possible. So with that said, cards like Shadow Strike allow you to deal with your opponent's creatures right after they play them, and it doesn't cost you to use your Abyss, because your Abyss can be used on face for burst damage, which this deck, it lacks. This deck has no burst. It has no card draw. But for what it lacks in that, it obtains through value, and to be able to summon a large quantity of Jade Golem cards with the synergy of the Shadowcaster, which we haven't gotten to. SI Agent is fantastic if you can either coin it out on turn 2 or you can combo it with the Backstab. It's a rogue staple. Defender of Argus. All right, so there's one of these in the deck. Originally I put 2, but I found 2 too much because I found that I had a lot of Jade Spirits in my hand when this guy was down, which means I couldn't play Defender, and then I played Jade Spirit. The Totem Golem would, or the Jade Golem would die, and then I'd have nothing to Defender besides the Jade Spirit, which was just bad. So I found 1 to be just enough, and the reason it's in the deck is because of aggro decks. Once aggro decks, or at least the amount of them on ladder kind of dissipates, then we could take Defender of Argus out and maybe put in like a Jade Lotus Agent, or maybe another Fan of Knives, for example. But now, because of the amount of weapons and the amount of aggro on ladder, I found the Defender of Argus, the ability to create taunts out of nowhere is very important in this deck, because your opponent knows that they're playing a rogue. Rogue has no healing in the deck whatsoever, and they most of the time don't play any taunts. So if you can burst a rogue down or kill them prior to the rogue being able to build up a huge combo turn, which is what the rogue class is known for, you can pick off an easy win versus them. But when you drop the Defender of Argus on turn 5 and you're able to taunt up like a 3/3 into a 4/4, and then also make like a 2/2 into a 3/3, you've now made a 7/7 basically with taunt, which your opponent is going to have to soak somehow, whether through trading creatures or using some of their burst from hand to get rid of it, which is very important. Also, it works well with Shadowcaster, because if you decide you would like to Shadowcaster a defender, you can make a 1-mana defender, make 2 more taunts, give them +1/+1 each, and it only costs 1 mana. Because you normally don't play Defender of Argus for the 2/3 body. You play it for the fact that it battle cries, gives the creatures next to it +1/+1 and taunt, which is very important. So that's why there's only 1 defender, because essentially you can have 3 defenders if you Shadowcaster it. Not that this is going to happen a ton, but it's still an option. It still happened with me with playing the Jade Spirit. Again, just part of the Jade Golem package. Unfortunately, it's not a Druid deck, so it doesn't have any cool things like the Jade Behemoth or anything like that. So we got to kind of stick with the Jade Spirit. Again, Shadowcaster can be used on Jade Spirit. Jade Spirit then costs 1 mana, and it can summon a Jade Golem, which summons a huge Jade Golem based on how many you've played prior. So very important in the deck. The Shadowcasters are what kind of, in my opinion, the Shadowcasters are what makes this deck so very cool and unique, is the fact that you can Shadowcaster specific things based on your current matchup. So if you're playing against a heavy control deck, you know, using it on the Jade Swarmer, using it on the Jade Spirit to make a bigger Jade Golem, very important. But maybe against a aggro deck, you'd be using it on the Defender of Argus or the SI Agent, just to be able to clear board a little bit more, so you can get the board control, and then you can get the win past that. The Azure Drakes, they're basically your draw mechanic in the deck, just like the Phantom and Bloodmaid's Thalamus. +1 spell damage allows your Shadow Strike, your Abyss, and your Backstab to do the additional damage. And it's just an annoying creature for priests to get rid of, because there are some priests on ladder, and 4 attack is just very annoying for them. Again, Shadowcaster, I just explained her, very powerful, especially if you use Shadowcaster on Blackpaw, because if you make yourself a 1-mana Blackpaw, all of a sudden you've got yourself another battle cry that's going to make a Jade Golem and the Death Rattle. And then on top of that, your N'Zoth is going to summon an additional Blackpaw, which is going to make another Jade Golem. So it's just craziness on top of craziness, a lot of cool combos, and a very interesting and unique deck. From there, we have the N'Zoth. This is your late game win condition versus a lot of those control classes that are pretty annoying. After you've played all of your Blackpaw, your Undercity Hucksters, your Jade Swarmers, and you've used your Shadowcaster to get the value from either your Blackpaw or your Jade Swarmers or your Hucksters, you can drop the N'Zoth, get yourself a 4 to 6 creature board that's either going to generate a lot of cards in your hand, it's going to summon Jade Golems, and it's just overall going to give you in a pretty sizable position over your opponent in the late game. And a lot of people don't expect the N'Zoth coming from a rogue who's already been playing Jade Golem cards. So there's just a lot of unexpected in this deck. Again, if you're playing against aggro decks, you won't come to need N'Zoth. The game will end prior to then most of the time. And you're going to have to use your Shadowcaster again with the Defender of Argus and SI Agents to get the value from there. But I did implement a win condition versus control decks. I like building decks that have the ability to win versus aggro, mid-range, and control decks. I don't like playing a deck that only wins versus aggro and control and automatically loses versus mid-range, or vice versa. So this deck, again, does very solid against most classes. If you don't draw a good hand, again, you'll probably lose, because it requires you to draw a somewhat decent hand. But we'll get into the matches here in a second, and I hope you enjoy, and let's get to it. So heading into our first game, we are going to be going against a Shaman. I'm going to make the assumption he's playing a Pirate aggressive based Shaman. So we're going to go ahead and keep the Acidic Swamp Ooze and the Shadow Strike for Totem Golem. I even like the 2-3-4 curve going on. The Azure Drake's a little bit too much late game for me. So this looks okay. Again, we're looking for a 1 or 2 drop to synergize well with this. The Jade Shuriken works all right if he decides he wants to play the Buccaneer. I always forget what his name is. Like not Young Buccaneer. Small Time Buccaneer, that's his name. We just recently got back from a cruise, so we haven't played a ton, but I'm pretty sure the meta hasn't changed significantly over the past 4 days, so I think we'll do just all right. So depending on how the game goes, for those of you who are unfamiliar again with how we do our deck guides, I try to explain the matchup. I like playing a variety of classes. So let's say we can play against like a Shaman, a Warlock, a Warrior, and whatever. Then I would probably keep that in here. This is fantastic. We can actually coin right into that Acidic Swamp Ooze to get rid of the Spirit Claws, which is a pretty solid start to a game. Unfortunately, we don't have any combo synergies with the Jade Shuriken anymore because we got rid of the coin. But turn 2 hero power is not the worst thing that can happen to us, right? Because now we can hero power, trade. Oh, the Undercity Huckster is an option here. So, options, right? So, we could hero power, Acidic Swamp Ooze, trade both into the Totem Golem, or we could go ahead and go face, play the Undercity Huckster. Next turn, if he decides he wants to go face with his Totem Golem, we would Shadow Strike it in the face. But unfortunately, I believe if we play the Undercity Huckster, he's going to make the trade so he can actually outvalue us. So I actually, in this position, like going ahead and just trading into this Totem Golem, because I have a feeling the only reason he'd play this Totem Golem here is if he has a follow-up Totem Golem. I just have the feeling this guy has another Totem Golem or a Tunnel Trog in his hand. Unfortunately, he doesn't, which is fine. So we can go ahead and just play the Undercity Huckster, which is totally okay in the situation at hand, and we can use our weapon to kill off this 1/1 Searing Totem. The reason we killed it, if it was any of the totems that had 2 HP, we wouldn't have made this trade. But because we could kill it right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and do so. Because any other totem with 2 HP, we'd be able to trade into it next turn with the Undercity Huckster and then throw down the Jade Spirit. So he's going to summon the 2/2, probably kill off our 2/2 here, and then next turn is going to be the Jade Spirit for us. Unfortunately, he rolled Spell Power, which is a little bit scary because he can Maelstrom Portal, but I'm going to pretend like that card doesn't exist. Ooh, so we actually could go ahead and Swashbuckler and then combo with the Jade Shuriken, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to try to build up our golems just like himself. And keep in mind with a shaman, even if they play Jade Claws, they're not necessarily playing the Jade Golem deck. It's just a very powerful card in the pirate aggro version of the deck. But because he didn't have Small Time Buccaneer, we also have to look at, you know, he could actually be playing the Jade Golem. Ooh, the 7-drop. So this is actually, it normally looks pretty bad, but because we kept the Shadow Strike and the Jade Shuriken, we can deal with this 7/7 no problem with our current hand state, which is absolutely phenomenal, right? Or we could go Blood Mage into the Shadow Strike, but I actually, again, like going ahead and summoning as many Jade Golems as possible. And we're going to attack into this totem because, again, we're not going to win this through just bursting down face. We're going to win this by slowly outvaluing our opponent. Slowly but surely, we will win this match. So the Maelstrom Portal feels really nice for him. Summons a 1/2 and hero powers into another creature. This is going to be able to heal that back up. So we're just going to drop the Black Paw. Or we could go ahead and drop the Swash. And then SI Agent into Blood Mage. But I actually just like the Black Paw, because if he doesn't deal with the Black Paw, we can Shadowcaster, make another Black Paw, and then play another Black Paw. And at that point, the game is basically over. That's just too much value for most decks to deal with. But if he decides this turn he wants to play his Black Paw and maybe Lightning Bolt our 3/3, we could be in a bit of trouble. He also can have Hex. Flame Tongue Totem is an option, but him making a trade is not the worst thing, because again, we will be able to outvalue him. He only has 4 cards in hand. We have 5 drawing into 6. We have a card that generates a card. We have a card again that generates a card, and then we have good removal. So double Maelstrom Portal definitely on his side here. The Mana Worm is a fantastic card for him to draw, which is really not so swell for us. The fact that it has 3 HP makes it so we basically have to Lightning Bolt it. Our SR Agent doesn't really deal with it the way I wanted to. And the Fireball allows him to deal with our 3/1 and our 4/2 quite nicely. So this was pretty unfortunate for us. But this guy is, I don't know what he was thinking. He could have just... I don't know what he was thinking, but he was thinking something, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't know what this guy was doing. Maelstrom Portal is pretty nice here. So if we go Blood Mage Maelstrom Portal, it doesn't actually clear anything. It leaves everything at 1 HP, which I really don't like that much. So we're definitely just gonna go with the Thalamus. I like going ahead and just dealing with this this Mana Worm. Doesn't feel that bad. From here, we go ahead and Lightning Bolt this, and then from there we can go ahead and SI Agent this guy down to 1 HP. And then from this hand, it looks like we might even Shadowcaster either SI Agent or the Blood Mage for draw. It depends what he does here, right? So if he Lightning Bolts this and he doesn't trade in the Thalamus, we're gonna go ahead and Shadowcaster this guy. So it looks like he cleared the board, not a big deal. So this is where he runs out of steam. We're still at 25 life, which is really good for us. We're gonna go ahead and just kill this off now. We're gonna hero power to kill his pirate. And next turn, we'll probably Shadowcaster the Undercity Huckster, which will generate a card, and depending on what he plays. So let's say he plays a decent-sized minion like a Totem Golem, we would go with the SI Agent. If he plays a card a little less powerful, where we can make a trade into it pretty nicely, we would go ahead and do the Undercity Huckster to get a card out of his deck, maybe get a heal, maybe get a field removal, or maybe even get some draw in there. But it looked like it worked out pretty well in that situation. So as you saw the game progressed, we were able to slowly get the board. Once we obtained the board, we continuously just outvalued him with the cards in the deck. There's quite a few ways to play this deck in my opinion, but I prefer just outvaluing your opponent. I like the control variant of any deck. Being able to just go 2 for 1 with your opponent all the time just feels fantastic. Alright, so we're playing against the mage. I'm going to make the assumption that he's playing the Reno Mage variant. Because he's playing a Reno Mage, I really don't like the Shadow Strikes in our opening hand. Jade Swarmers are fine. But the problem is in this particular matchup is that he will... It's hard to say. I haven't played this matchup a ton. But I feel like Reno Mage is a very powerful deck, so we'll have to see how it pans out. I do not want to Journey from Below here due to the fact that it's a combo activator for cards like Jade Shuriken and Abyss, and it's in the deck basically to fill out a curve, and we don't need to fill that curve just yet because we have the turn 2 play. Let's say we didn't have a turn 2 play, I would Journey from Below and look for a turn 2 or turn 3 play. So next turn, if he doesn't play anything, I'm going to Journey from Below and look for a turn 4 play. But we just obtained a turn 4 play, so a hero powering looks pretty powerful. This is a hard one. So I think we're going to hero power. Yes, I think we're going to look for a turn 5 or 6 play with Journey from Below. I think Blood Mage is fine. She works well with Jade Shuriken, and she also works well with every other spell power card in our deck. So, and she's good draw. The Exodus was bad. If we would have picked up like Sylvanas or a Bloodhoof, that would have been fantastic. It also, he could be running the Freeze Mage, which also would be an issue. So just whipping out the Jade Swarmer, just trying to do as much damage as possible. Our turn 5 will most likely consist of Shadowcastering our Jade Spirit, so we're actually not going to attack with our weapon, because if we need it next turn, we'll be unable to get it back, basically. So it looks like he's Kazakis, which means we could trade in our 2-2 and our 1-1 to kill it, or we could trade in our 2-2, swing with our weapon and keep our 1-1 alive. I do not value the 1-1 very highly. I almost want to Shadowcaster the Jade Swarmer, to be completely honest. But at the same time, I don't, because I don't like any other play available to me. So we're going to go ahead and do this. I feel like the other play would be a bit too slow for this particular matchup. We just need to put the pedal to the metal here, guys, because we already got both our Jade Swarmers. Let's say let's say we got no Jade Swarmers. I would have held Shadowcaster, but the fact that we got both, we can kind of be a little frisky with it, right? Because we know our N'Zoth is bringing back both. All right, so this is a fine position to be in. So we can go ahead and we can Spirit. From here, we can Jade Shuriken or we can Shadow Strike. I actually like the Shuriken here because we don't need to push like a ton of damage, right? We just need to get just enough to knock this card down, and then we're going to hero power ourselves back up. We could play the Swash, but again, I don't want to waste it. There's no reason to play it right now. We can use it as a combo activator later on because we already have a pretty sizable board. So he's Kazakis Potion. I'm assuming he's dealing 4 damage to everything, which is again why we kind of didn't want to do anything, because he had the field clear. So now we can go ahead and start with the Swash, then probably the SI into another Jade Swarmer, and then hero power face, of course. So again, putting down more pressure with the Jade Swarmer. The second we draw into N'Zoth, we're going to have a fairly powerful N'Zoth as well, especially if we can throw down the Blood Mage and maybe another Death Rattle or draw into the Journey from Below. The Drake doesn't make a significant difference, but it's still a 6/6 card he's going to have to deal with either a Fireball or a Flame Cannon. So, not Flame Cannon, a Flame Lance. So, This 6-3 doesn't make any difference whatsoever, because we can just Shadow Strike that. Or we can make the trade. First, let's go ahead and draw and see what's going on. Evis, I actually like just Shadow Striking this down, and we'll just go face with what we've got going on here. Again, we're forcing him to continuously have answers, because due to the fact that he's playing a Reno deck, Reno has a problem with consistency, right? In order for a Reno, oh boy. Antonitis was definitely a card to play around, but we still have a Vis in our hand. So we can go Blood Maids of Vis, that's 5 damage. So we just basically need to make sure we have at least 2 damage on the board. And it's going to be hard for him to do that, based on the fact that we do still have Jade Swarmer out. Using a lot of resources here. Forbidden Flame. He's basically just using the flame for the fireball. Okay, so we can go with the Blood Mage. This is going to deal 6 damage. Kill this off. And we can go ahead and, I don't really mind Defender of Argus. And we can go face. He's got quite a few, he's probably going to fireball both the 5/5s down, which means 5/5s aren't going to our face. That was fucking super fucking unfortunate. So this was our win condition versus this deck, and we basically just lost because of that. That was super unfortunate. That was like maximum unfortunante. Oh my gosh, that was like the worst thing that could have ever happened. This was so bad. We had this game in the fucking bag until this point in time. And the reason we only played the Drake instead of the Black Paw is because of Flame Strike. So if we can get Shadowcaster, we're still in this. We just need to draw our Shadowcaster, because we can Shadowcaster back N'Zoth. So it's not over just yet. Unfortunately, that is not Shadowcaster, so we're going to Burgle and see what we can get. Any return spell would be great. Conjure is not the worst thing, but I think we're gonna go with the Black Paw here. Well, what card could we get from the Conjure that would allow us to keep this N'Zoth alive or return it back to our hand? I don't think there's any mage card that returns a card back to the hand. So I think we're just gonna go with the Black Paw, kill this, and then go face with what we've got going on. So he basically has to have his Reno or Ice Block here, or we're gonna win this game. Unfortunately, our N'Zoth was down. This was very bad. N'Zoth getting down was like, the Dirty Rat solely won him the game. If we lose this game, Dirty Rat did us dirty. Reno very powerful here. Again, if we draw into any of our Shadowcasters, that's super important. So I suppose we can start with Journey from Below. We're going to take the most value-oriented card. From then, we can play around Flame Strike by playing the Bloodhoof, or we could play the Conjure and look for some face damage. I personally like going for the Bloodhoof, as it's basically infinite value for now. We're going to go ahead and kill off this Reno Jackson so he can't make another one, and then we're going to go face for everything we've got. Whew. This card can still give us burst like a Fireball or Frostbolt, so theoretically we're pushing lethal next turn. So he has to again draw into his Ice Block. He's already used his Reno, and he's already used his Blizzard. Dirty Rat's out of the question. There's another Fireball coming down. Again, we want him to use Fireballs on creatures and not our face, because we have no heal in the deck. Do not kill my N'Zoth, please. Rip N'Zoth. Forever you'll be missed. So I suppose we can Azure Drake, see what we draw. Now we're going to draw a Shadowcaster, right? Oh, no. Jade Spirit sounds good, because Jade Spirit's going to summon an 8/8, and an 8/8 survives past a Flame Strike. This guy doesn't run Twisting Nether. So this is basically how we win this matchup. We play the Jade Golems extremely quickly. We pump out like super threats. In your match, you won't get Dirty Ratted into the N'Zoth, or you won't get Dirty Ratted and it won't pull out N'Zoth because your luck isn't mine. And that's how you'll win this matchup. You just go Jade Golems like crazy. If they ever clear your board, you drop N'Zoth, you gain a ton of value, you win the game. Because they only have Blizzard, they only have one Flame Strike, and they have a Kazakus. He played it early, he already used it, and then the Cabal Carry theoretically could have given him a Twisting Nether, but that's not going to allow him to save. Now he's going to have to hope for a secret, like an Ice Block to allow to live. He pulled the 2-drop. The 2-drop, depending on his other secrets, he's going to be able to kill some shit. But still, we've got, what, 12? We still have lethal. So even in the most unfortunate situation where he was able to pull our N'Zoth from our hand, we were able to obtain the win solely by being able to pump out maximum Jade Golem value, which feels pretty good. Feels all right. Feels all right. And again, we're joined tonight by some fine wine. We had a rough day today, guys. If you watched our Jade Golem Rogue testing video, then you saw. All right, so we played a Shaman, we played a Mage, and now we're playing a Warlock. If we can win this one, this will be a fantastic deck guide for you to kind of see how the deck performs. I don't really like the Swamp Ooze or the Azure Drake, to be honest. The Swash and the Jade Shuriken are perfectly fine. We're looking for maybe Journey from Below, maybe another 2-drop. Shadowcaster, Fan of Knives, pretty fucking horrible because they don't really do anything. But I'm going to pretend like it's okay. Black Paw's not bad. We're going to start with the Burglar. This is absolutely trash. So it doesn't look like the start of this game is anything short of bad. And repositioning here. We did legs on the cruise the other day. And our legs are extremely sore. So if we coin into Sense Demons, nothing good happens. So I think we just Hero Power. It's basically gonna give us 2 1/1s. This is like one of the worst cards we could have pulled from his deck. It's a 3-drop, generate 2 1/1s. We're playing against, of course, a Reno lock, so this is gonna be quite a long game that we have to play very meticulously. I do not like playing just Sense Demons right now. It's filling our fan with garbage. I guess we just Fan of Knives and kind of just look for things to play, right? Turn 4, we can coin out a 5-drop, which doesn't feel that bad, but I'd rather coin on 5 into a 6-drop and then Shadowcaster the Black Paw, to be completely honest. So I think we do nothing this turn. This is a very awkward game, guys. Oh boy, this is definitely not good. This is definitely not good. Kind of just have to deal as much damage to that bad boy as we can, and I think we're just gonna attack into it with our 1/1 because that guy's he's not gonna be doing a whole lot. So I'm gonna hope he doesn't have a heal or another. Oh fuck! This is the best start you could possibly have with the Reno Warlock. Is the Mountain Giant into the Azure Drake. There's really not much we can do in this particular matchup, guys, besides just summon what we can. Double trading into the Giant doesn't feel that great, but I'll trade this guy in here just because I know that he can Mortal Coil it down. So this isn't the worst thing. It's pretty fucking bad, but it's not over just yet. If he decides he lets the Black Paw live, we can go ahead and Shadowcaster him and then make this trade, summon another Shadowcaster, then we could be talking. But the Twilight Drake and the Mountain Giant are kind of like the 2 best cards in this particular Warlock's list that he could have played on curve like that. That makes this that much worse. And this, I'm pretty sure that's the game right there. You can't really beat a start like that, guys. We lose next turn. So I guess we need like maybe a backstab. Journey from Below doesn't do it. Okay, so this will be the 1 loss in the deck guide. You can't beat a start like that, guys. There's not many decks that can. If you're running Warrior, you can execute or Shield Slam. But unfortunately, this Rogue deck doesn't have what it takes to beat an 8/8 on 4 and then a 4/9 or a 4/9 on 5 into Defender of Argus on 6. Not with the hand that we received. If we would have started with maybe a 1-drop into a 2-drop into a 3-drop into a 4-drop and be able to curve out quite well, there's a different story there. We would have been able to clear the 8/8 with like a Shadow Strike of something of that nature, right? But unfortunately, in the hand that we obtained, we were unable to draw a Shadow Strike or any Vis or any 2-drop to play. So not much we could have done there. I really wish we could have, that matchup would have lasted even a little bit longer. Even if we would have still lost, I wish it would have lasted a little bit longer. Just so you guys could have seen the matchup and how it played out. It plays very similar to the Reno Mage, for those of you who are unfamiliar with kind of how it would have played out. It plays very very similar to that. So now the question is, do we attack this Tunnel Trog? If we attack the Tunnel Trog, we can't Shadow Strike it next turn. If we attack the Tunnel Trog, that means we can play in a 1-drop, and then we can Jade Shuriken it next turn. But the thing is, I have a feeling that this guy is going to play Totem Golem next turn, which means we want to definitely Shadow Strike the Totem Golem, attack this for 1, and then kill this over the course of 3 turns. But it's very questionable if he has a Totem Golem. And I was drinking and wasn't paying attention how many cards he kept in his hand. So for example, if he would have kept 2 cards in his opening hand, I would almost guarantee you that the 2 cards would be Tunnel Trog Totem Golem, which means we would not attack this card. But I don't know. This is a tough one. I'm gonna go ahead and attack it, and I'm gonna hope. Fuck it. We'll see what happens. There's the Totem Golem. All right. So this is getting Shadow Striked, and then we're not attacking that because next turn is the Blood Mage into the Jade Shuriken, and so hopefully he hero powers and it's not a healing totem. So coin into a 3-drop. So Feral Spirits is his choice. And now we're going to go ahead and still Blood Mage into Jade Shuriken, which is the only thing we have to really deal with what he's got going on here. I know this is not the mightiest of boards, but Shaman is one of the most powerful classes right now, especially the deck he's running. So it's kind of hard to compete with that. So let's say he has a dry turn 5, we can come back. But if he's been broke back in it so far. I mean, Tunnel Trog into Totem Golem into coin Feral Spirits. I mean, there's not a lot of decks that can compete with something like that. Into Jade Claws, he's curving out very well. He is doing just fine. So best card we could draw is a solid 2-drop. Okay, so this isn't the worst thing because we could Abyss this, and then we could SI Agent this, and then swing into it. Or we would Swash into SI that. But I feel like just reducing as much damage as possible is like very, very important right now. So we're gonna go with that play. We have the Shadow Strike for when he decides he wants to drop the 4-drop 7/7, which is hopefully not this turn. Hopefully we can at least have 2 creatures on the board when he drops the 4-drop 7/7. But he still has 5 cards in his hand. So he's been playing some of the most powerful cards in his deck, and he's really not overextending. So if he makes trades, I'd be surprised. I would imagine he just goes faced here based on what he's played. So our turn will probably consist of maybe Swash into the Jade. Uh-oh, so he makes the trade there, okay. So a Jade Shuriken is a pretty powerful card we can draw. Ooh, so we might actually have to Shadow Strike down that Flame Tongue Totem, which feels pretty bad, but unfortunately it's one of the only plays we have. But first we're gonna Swashbuckle and see what we got going on. This is actually a really good card for us to get. I still think we have to get rid of that card.
Here we go.
If he had the 4-drop 7/7, he would have played it last turn. So I'm going to assume he doesn't have it. And hopefully he doesn't draw it until we get either another Abyss or a Shadow Strike. Or at least have a board to be able to deal with it. So we need at least 1 to 2 turns before he plays the 4-drop 7/7. So please, for the love of God, fuck me. Alright. So we need to draw a Shadow Strike. That's not a Shadow Strike. Alright, so hopefully we can withstand. I probably should have attacked into the 7/7 with our 1/1 because if he Maelstrom portals, this wouldn't deal the damage it would have done to this. But we're already at 17. If he rolls a Lightning Storm or a Maelstrom, we are so fucking dead. There's Blood Mage into a 1-drop. Spirit Claws into our 3/3 7/7 to the face. Shadow Strike or Abyss is so very important right now. Or Defender of Argus. Shadowcaster. I mean, we could Shadowcaster or Swash and hope for a Hex. That's basically our only out, right? Because currently we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's enough. So I suppose we would trade this into here first to see what we obtain. That doesn't change much. So this trades, and then this trades. We're only at 11 health, and his deck is basically an all-face deck, so we're going to see some Lava Burst, and we're going to see some Jade Lightning. So unfortunately, we're not going to win every game in this deck yet, but you've seen a kind of a broad spectrum of what we've got going on. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. Because if he doesn't have the burst, if he's playing the more mid-range orientation of it, oh god, spell power was bad. Because now he can make trades, and his lightning bolts deal a fuck ton of damage. Oh my god. So we probably just lost there. Yeah. So if he rolled spell power, we were at 11, we would have taken 7. But because he rolled spell power, we actually ended up taking 12. Or, yeah. So again, another matchup where you kind of need to draw decent to win. There was a lot of cards that we missed out on that game. Like having to Shadow Strike the Flame Tongue Totem instead of the 7/7, due to the fact that we would have been so far behind if we wouldn't, because we would have taken damage from attacking the Taunt Totem. He would have re-rolled the totem the following turn, most likely being another annoying totem or another Taunt Totem, making us so even if we did Shadow Strike, we wouldn't be able to push through to the Taunt Totem or to the 7/7 for the extra 2 damage it would have taken to kill it, because we would have had to get through the totem. But besides that, unfortunately, we didn't get a good N'Zoth off or a Shadowcaster on Black Power N'Zoth for the true value. But you definitely see that as a combo that we were going to use against the Reno Mage, which we originally played. You definitely saw how this deck plays against the Pirate Aggro Shaman in the earlier games when we drew a decent hand. And they also, like, even the second game we played, when we played against the or it might have been the first game, we played against the Shaman, right? And he still had the 4-drop 7/7. He still had everything he needed, but we also had cards to combat that, right? We had the Shadow Strike on the 4-drop 7/7, which is very important. We had the Abyss onto not a Feral Spirit. But again, in this deck, when you don't draw the early game and you only have removal in your hand and you're taking a fuck ton of damage at the beginning, you kind of have to do what you have to do to mitigate that damage. Because again, this deck does not have any healing. It only has one form of taunt, and the rest of it's just trades. And single target removal. So you have to play it accordingly based on the hand you have, and sometimes the deck will not give you the hand that you want. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed the deck. You'll find it very interesting and fun to play like I do. And with that said, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave those in the comment section below as I try to get back to everybody. As you can see through all of our other videos, I try to, keep up with the comments and answer any questions you may have. And from that, hopefully you've enjoyed and have fun with the deck. As always, guys, I'm Warshack, of course, and happy whatever the hell day it is.